Hi and welcome to this video. In this video, I want to spend a few minutes to talk about emotions in the workplace. Now, for me personally, if you've watched some of my other videos, you will know that I consider emotions to be extremely significant, especially when it comes to communication. Now, what do we do at work? Well, you and I, we go to work to earn money so that we can take care of the things that are important to ourselves, just our families, our friends, and our leisure time and things like that. Now, what does the organization demand of us in return? Well, the organization requires our skills, our expertise, and quite potentially all of the conversations that we get into so that we can take action in a committed way. Now, I use this word commitment or to be committed. That is to say, commitment itself becomes an emotion. And the more of these actions that are taken within the organization, the more actions that are taken in the emotion of commitment leads to greater and greater productivity gains, which leads to greater and greater bottom line effects for the organization. Now, what does that mean? Well, for yourself, it could mean an increase in pay. For the organization, it could mean several things. It could mean increased shareholder value, increased trust with yourself as part of the organization or within the external customers of the organization, as well as all of the other internal customers of the organization, such as different business units or other departments or things like that. Whatever it is, emotions are a significant component to everyday functioning of an organization's communications. And with that, I want to introduce you to this slide. Now, you've probably seen this slide before, and this is Dr. Robert Plutchik's Wheel of Emotions. And the reason I want to point it out is that there are only 32 different emotions here in the whole, at least from this greater spectrum of emotions. But I really want you to focus on this one here, which is trust. Let me just highlight it here, trust out here. And the reason trust is important is trust is at the heart of whatever it is that we are trying to build, at the heart of every relationship that we get into. And the relationship that you have with your place of employ is, at the core of it, is a relationship about trust. And likewise, the relationship that the organization has with you is also a relationship based on trust. So all of the actions that you take, all of the actions that you are committed to as part of your team, as part of your business unit, part of your department, as part of, your area of expertise and whatever it is that you contribute to the organization, that all builds up over time to an emotion of trust. And that trust passes itself along within the organization to the external customers, to the other internal customers, and so on and so forth, so that the organization can thrive and you, as a result, can also thrive as well. So emotions in the workplace are extremely important. And this is where I invite you to consider how the emotions that, number one, you bring to work can be just as significant as the emotions that work creates for yourself. And this is what I mean. When you experience some sort of emotion, and that's outside of work, that is to say you are with your friends, your family, your community, or whatever it is, and you bring a certain kind of emotion to work, that emotion is going to translate itself into certain kinds of actions. So for example, bring in the emotion of anger. Now, you're sitting at a meeting and you have to take a certain kind of action at work. That is to say, you have to be productive. In that emotion of anger, those possibilities for the kinds of actions that you can potentially do with the kind of enthusiasm that could lead to greater and greater productivity gains may be somewhat diminished or may even be greater. So depending on what the outcomes are and depending on what you want from those outcomes, that emotion of anger may be conducive to helping you become more productive at work. Or, more often than not, it can actually be quite detrimental. One thing I invite you to consider is that you do not exist as a functioning member of a team independently of other individuals that you participate with. That is to say, all of the emotions that you bring to the table, I invite you to consider that every single other individual who's part of your team or who's part of your business unit or department, or even the whole organization, is also going to bring some sort of emotion. And those emotions all coalesce together and create that dynamic conversation that leads to possibilities, that leads to actions, that eventually leads to new product breakthroughs or support ticket resolutions or other things like that. So emotions, no matter whether or not you bring them with you from areas external to the workplace, or whether the emotions are created within the workplace by other individuals, by the environment that you're in, by the lighting even, or the sound, or any of those other things within the organization, regardless of what it is, those emotions that you experience, that you are going to interpret, are going to lend themselves to the kind of actions that you take. And here is an extremely key point that I want to emphasize once again. Those actions that you take, regardless of whether or not you assess that emotion to be positive or negative or whatever it is, those actions that you take are going to be perceived by yourself, number one, as well as by the rest of your team, as well as by the organization, and then more implicitly by the customer. Those actions are going to determine that level of trust that is being built up conversation after conversation, action after action. One of the ideas that I used to have about emotions is that, you're not really supposed to bring them to work. Those emotions that you're supposed to have are kind of supposed to be tucked away when you come to work, and you're supposed to just do your job, or maybe the organization just expects you to do your job. But here's the thing, each one of us, every single one of us is a human being, and every single one of us is going to experience an emotion at all times. And those emotions are going to be interpreted in that subjective, unique way that each of us sees the world. And those actions, those subjective interpretations are going to lead to actions that create those actions that we take, which will ultimately increase the level of trust that we have within the organization, or decrease the level of trust that we have with our organizations. So just to reiterate, emotions in the workplace are tremendously important. You as a human being are going to experience emotions, whether at the workplace or outside of the workplace. Whatever it is, as you interact with other human beings, as you interact and fulfill all the duties and obligations that you are meant to fulfill, as you interact and take action so that you become more or less productive, those are all determined by the emotions that you bring with yourself. And secondly, those actions that you take that determine your productivity or not, those actions are also determined by the emotions that you experience while in the place of work. So I hope this has not been too overwhelming, because there are so many subtle, nuanced factors at play here. That is to say, emotions are extremely important because they constitute a significant portion of our communication. And emotions are what allow us to take action, and those actions are what are perceived as either being ultimately trustworthy or not. So I hope this has been helpful, and if you do have any questions about this video, please don't hesitate to share and post below. So take care of yourself, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.